If you were tasked with designing a modern business strategy from scratch, you would probably never build it like Istanbul.
No, definitely not. It breaks all the rules.
Right. I mean, you certainly wouldn't put an ancient echoing mosque right next to like a hyper-modern finance hub or intentionally force your daily operations to straddle two entirely different continents.
Yeah, it sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It is chaotic. It is deeply contradictory. By all traditional, sterilized business metrics, it should be an absolute failure. And yet, it's one of the most resilient, continuously profitable strategic models in human history. So, welcome to today's deep dive.
It really is the ultimate paradox, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, we are constantly taught that focus requires elimination.
Oh, for
The
sure.
traditional corporate mindset just insists that you have to pick a lane. Like, are you a luxury brand or are you a budget brand?
Right. Or are you digital first or a physical brick and mortar retailer?
Exactly. Are you operating locally or globally? You choose your system, you cut away everything that doesn't fit neatly into that box, and you simplify.
And we crave that simplicity because, well, the reality is just overwhelming. You listening to this right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone feels it.
Yeah, you are operating in a multi-system world every single day. You're constantly trying to balance global demands with local sensitivities, tradition with rapid technological innovation, and it is exhausting.
It's totally exhausting. And most people, and definitely most typical firms, they just completely struggle with this information overload.
They try to simplify.
Right. They resist integration. They just shut their eyes and say, we are only doing this one thing.
Which is exactly why so many modern organizations fracture under the pressure, right?
Yes, because when you try to force a complex, multi-system reality into a single, oversimplified strategy, you don't actually eliminate the tension.
You just hide it from yourself.
Exactly. You just make yourself vulnerable to it. You create massive blind spots.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive is to uncover the ultimate alternative to that fragile simplicity.
And the alternative is fascinating.
It really is. We're looking at a strategic signal analysis titled What Strategists Can Learn from Cities. And the focus, as we mentioned, is Istanbul.
Right.
And what's wild is that Istanbul isn't positioned as purely east or purely west. It is the geographic bridge that monetizes both.
Yeah, if you stand in the center of Istanbul, you are experiencing a place that was built at the very intersection of opposites.
You really feel it.
You do. As you mentioned, you hear the ancient call to prayer echoing right near these ultra-luxury hotels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you have majestic Ottoman palaces directly facing sleek glass and steel finance districts.
That contrast is just incredible.
It is. You have centuries-old bazaars operating shoulder to shoulder with massive global brands. And literally, physically, you have commuter ferries moving regular people back and forth between Europe and Asia every single day.
I was thinking about this, and it's like, think of a typical company like a walled garden or maybe a luxury resort.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Right. It controls everything inside its walls. It's very clean, but it's entirely isolated. Istanbul, on the other hand, operates more like a toll bridge.
Ah, yes.
It doesn't need to manufacture all the goods. It just needs to own the intersection where the goods are forced to cross. It's like an operating system that runs perfectly between iOS and Android without forcing you to choose one.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
The city doesn't resolve the tensions. It orchestrates them.
So what does this all mean for a modern manager?
Well, the core lesson here is, bridge, don't choose. Typical firms resist integration by deciding they can only operate inside one ecosystem.
They pick iOS or Android.
Right. But Istanbul teaches strategists how to operate between systems. Mechanistically, we can look at its geography as destiny strategy.
Geography is destiny. That's a great phrase.
It is. So the Bosphorus Strait is the physical body of water that divides Europe and Asia. But strategically, it connects them.
So controlling that water is everything.
Exactly. For centuries, controlling that narrow passage meant you controlled trade, military access, and you held incredible geopolitical leverage. Empires like the Roman, the Byzantines, and the Ottoman rose to massive power specifically by holding Istanbul.
Wow.
Yeah, geography wasn't just a pretty background. It was strategy infrastructure. Strategic power lies in integration, not dominance.
So the strategic insight for an organization is that your location, whether that's a physical location or your market positioning it, becomes your greatest asset when you position yourself as a gateway rather than a border.
Precisely. A border stops things. A gateway controls the flow.
Instead of fighting the opposing forces in your industry, you just become the connector.
And that leads to a really fascinating mechanical challenge. If your entire strategy is to act as a bridge between these different, sometimes clashing worlds, what materials are you using to build the foundation of that bridge?
I mean, you can't just build it out of thin air.
Right. You cannot build a durable bridge out of thin air. You use your history.
Wait, hold on. I have to stop you right there.
Okay, go ahead.
Because in a corporate setting, keeping all that historical baggage is exactly what kills legacy companies.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, if a tech firm tries to be its 1980s self, its 2000 self, and its 2026 self all at the exact same time, it's going to get crushed by a nimble startup. Doesn't this idea of keeping your history just create a massive identity crisis and slow you down?
What's fascinating here is that history compounds rather than resets.
Compounds.
Yes, it's not about dragging dead weight. It's about utilizing the depth of where you came from to legitimize where you are going. This brings us to the concept of legacy stacking.
Legacy stacking. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, when typical organizations rebrand or, when a new CEO comes in, what do they usually do?
They scrub the old identity?
Right. They roll out a new logo and pretend the company was born yesterday. They abandon their past. But Istanbul proves the sheer power of doing the exact opposite.
So it doesn't erase those prior identities?
No, it accumulates them. It holds these layered civilizational transitions from the Roman to the Byzantines to the Ottoman empires.
How does that actually work in practice, though? Like in a city?
Think about the iconic landmarks detailed in the analysis. Places like Hagia Sophia, Topkapi Palace, and the Blue Mosque.
Oh, sure.
These physical spaces represent those layered transitions. They've transitioned seamlessly between being a church, a mosque, a museum, a monument.
That's true.
When the Ottomans took over, they didn't just level the Byzantine architecture to start from zero. They built upon it. They incorporated it.
I see.
So mechanistically, in a corporate environment, when you institutionalize your legacy, you legitimize your leadership authority. These aren't just old buildings. They are underleveraged legacy assets that create a durable competitive advantage.
Oh, so it's a signaling mechanism to the market. You're saying, look how long we've survived.
Precisely. Think about like a heritage brand that maintains its classic craftsmanship while adopting cutting-edge sustainable materials.
Right. They aren't throwing away the past.
Exactly. They're stacking the new identity on top of the old one. This creates an advantage that a brand new startup literally cannot replicate. A startup can copy your software overnight, but they cannot copy 50 years of compounded trust and layered identity.
You aren't dragging the baggage. You are standing on it to get a better view. That completely flips the modern obsession with constant rebranding on its head.
It really does.
Okay, so you have this incredibly firm, stacked foundation. You own the intersection. But having a bridge isn't enough, right?
No, you actually have to drive traffic across it.
Exactly. You have to build an ecosystem that thrives on all those differences you've brought together. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
We talk so much today about platform companies, treating them like they were invented in Silicon Valley a couple of decades ago. But the analysis points out that the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul functioned as a multi-sided marketplace, centuries before modern digital platforms like Amazon or Alibaba even existed.
It is the original platform company.
It really is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of multi-sided market design, we have to ask, what makes a platform like Amazon so dominant?
Well, it's not just that they sell things, it's the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And the Grand Bazaar did this physically. It clustered merchants, artisans, traders, and travelers all into one incredibly dense commercial ecosystem. And it offered the exact same 4 pillars that a modern digital platform offers.
Right. The analysis listed them as distribution, discovery, negotiation, and experience.
Let's break those down because the parallel is striking.
Yeah, let's look at those mechanically. It's almost eerie how perfectly it maps to modern e-commerce. Like, you go to Amazon for distribution, they have the logistical network to get you the goods.
Right, and discovery.
Finding things you didn't even know you needed because the algorithm recommends them based on what you were already looking at.
Yes. Then there's negotiation, which is the ability to compare prices from a dozen different vendors instantly.
And finally, experience, just the overall ease, security, and reliability of the platform itself. The Grand Bazaar was doing exactly that, just with silk, spices, and ceramics instead of servers.
And it achieved that through what we call density economics.
Density economics, okay.
When you cluster merchants and artisans tightly together, you don't just create competition, you increase demand spillover.
Demand spillover.
Right. Imagine you go to the bazaar specifically to buy a carpet. That's your distribution goal. But because the spice vendor is located directly next to the carpet seller, the aroma catches your attention. You end up buying saffron too.
Ah, that's physical discovery.
Exactly. One shop brings the customer in, but the proximity to 100 other shops keeps the customer there, spending more money.
So the physical layout of the city was essentially acting as a recommendation algorithm.
Yes. The managerial takeaway here is that proximity and diversity actually accelerate transaction velocity and value exchange. Corporate managers can apply this by critically examining how they design their own ecosystems.
Like, are your teams isolated in silos?
Right. Do you have your engineers in one building and your marketing team in another, speaking entirely different languages? Or are they clustered in a way that allows ideas and resources to spill over naturally?
That makes a lot of sense. If you want your company to move faster and generate more value, you need to bring the different parts closer together to create that spillover. But, I mean, that brings up a massive logistical headache.
It does. Density breeds friction.
Yeah. If you just cram all these opposing forces, different departments, and diverse systems together into one dense bazaar, they don't actually collaborate, they bottleneck. So how do you keep the system moving? How do you govern that dense ecosystem without it completely fracturing into chaos?
That is the pivotal question for any complex organization, and it requires a very specific approach. The source outlines several frameworks for managing complexity, and the first is cultural operations management.
Cultural operations management.
Right. Now, this doesn't just mean being polite to people from different backgrounds. Mechanistically, it means serving diverse customer bases with localized sensitivity.
So what does that look like in practice for a manager?
If you are managing a highly diverse team, you cannot use a centralized one-size-fits-all approach. You need modular governance. Just as historical Istanbul allowed different cultural districts to largely manage their own internal affairs, a modern company might centralize its macro goals, but entirely decentralize its daily operations based on local norms.
It's tight alignment on the macro, but extreme autonomy on the micro.
Precisely. And to keep all those autonomous modules connected, you need what the analysis calls flow logistics.
The use of ports, ferries, and straits, it illustrates throughput strategy.
Yes. It's not just about having the physical assets. It's about managing the exact rate of movement so that commerce doesn't halt. In a corporate setting, your flow logistics might be your internal communication channels or your data pipelines.
Right. If your data gets stuck in one department and can't cross the strait to the next one, the entire platform stalls. So you have decentralized modules and you have flow logistics connecting them. But what stops the whole thing from just feeling like a cold transactional machine? How do you keep people emotionally invested in this massive, complex system?
This is where the analysis points to identity branding through sports.
Oh, man, this completely surprised me.
It's a brilliant mechanism. When you look at the major football clubs and Istanbul clubs like Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, and Besiktas, these aren't just sports teams.
No, they are massive socio-political identity platforms.
Exactly. The local derbies, the rivalry matches, they literally divide neighborhoods, ideologies, and histories.
I marvel at that sports angle because competition isn't just a game here. When it's ritualized like that, it builds emotional brand loyalty at massive scale.
It does. It provides an outlet for tribal identity without destroying the overarching infrastructure of the city. Everyone lives in the same chaotic metropolis, but on Derby Day, you have a clear, passionate identity.
So for modern managers, creating healthy, ritualized competition can build that same kind of deep emotional loyalty.
Yes, but bringing this down to the individual listener's career, the most powerful lesson here is that your identity can be hybrid.
Hybrid identity.
Right. You don't have to be just the creative person or just the data person. You can belong to multiple worlds simultaneously. Adaptability is survival.
That is so true. Crossing continents daily, whether you are doing that physically on a ferry or mentally by translating complex engineering concepts into a marketing campaign, it expands your strategic perspective.
It really does. Trade is cultural. Commerce builds understanding.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly powerful. Acting as a bridge, stacking legacy, building a multi-sided, bizarre, modular governance, embracing a hybrid identity. But no system is invincible.
No, definitely not.
We have to look at the other side of the coin. What are the cracks in the bridge? What happens when this massive, beautiful complexity actually becomes a weakness?
This raises an important question about the limits of the Istanbul model. When your strategy relies on managing multiple systems, your risk surface area expands. The strategists highlight specific weak signals that you have to watch.
Right, the vulnerabilities.
First, because the city relies so heavily on its physical geography and layered infrastructure, it faces severe earthquake infrastructure risk.
And mapping that to a business, an earthquake isn't just a bad quarter. It's a fundamental structural collapse, like a massive cloud server outage for a digital platform.
Exactly. Then there is currency volatility, which impacts tourism and trade. The bizarre economics rely on transaction velocity. But if the currency fluctuates wildly, the negotiation pillar crumbles.
The platform stalls. There's also the risk of urban congestion pressures, right?
Thank
Too
you.
much density chokes the flow logistics.
Yes, in a corporate environment, urban congestion is technical debt. It's bureaucratic bloat. You stack so many legacy systems together that eventually a simple decision takes 6 months to navigate through the internal traffic.
You lose the agility,
Yeah.
which leads to that constant underlying tension between heritage preservation and modernization.
How does an organization balance preservation with progress when the very infrastructure it relies upon is under pressure?
Hmm.
You have to leverage your legacy assets, but you can't let them become a museum that prevents you from laying down modern fiber optic cables.
It's the ultimate tightrope walk. But the alternative, trying to simplify by retreating to just one side of the river, means giving up the incredible leverage that comes from being the bridge.
You give up the power of the intersection.
Exactly. Well, we have covered a ton of ground today, and I want to make sure we distill this for you, the listener.
Absolutely.
First, act as a bridge, don't choose. Stop trying to force your complex reality into a simplified flowchart. Second, stack your legacy assets. Stop erasing your past and build a durable advantage.
Yes.
Third, build multi-sided platforms. Think like the Grand Bazaar to accelerate value. And finally, let your identity be hybrid. The more you cross continents daily, the more indispensable you become.
And remember the ultimate strategic lesson here. Control the intersection, and you influence every direction. True resilience is found in integration, not purity.
Integration, not purity. I love that. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about your own career, your team, or your company right now. What is the invisible Bosphorus Strait in your industry?
Oh, that's a great question.
What is that intersection that all your competitors are treating as a border to cross as fast as possible? What if you stopped trying to cross it and instead claimed it, settled in, and turned it into your own center of gravity? You can be the bridge. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll see you next time.